Have you been worried about whether or not it made more sense for you to rent a home or buy a home? Are you, for many people, still on the fence trying to determine which is better, which is more financially sound? Could be that there's an easy, nothing about finances is easy, but could be that there's a simple way to understand in today's market, or any market for that matter, whether it makes more sense to buy a home or to rent a home. We received a listener question from Harry in Woodstock. Like many, we are renters and still trying to decide if it is cheaper to rent or own our own home. Do you have a formula or any guidance to share? And Harry, my answer is yes, I do. If you want to determine if it's better to buy or rent, then you need to understand the price to rent ratio. In most cases, they use a price to rent ratio for the entire market. And you can use a price to rent ratio for a particular home if you want to. The price to rent ratio of home prices, it's the ratio of home prices to annualized rent in a given location. This ratio is used as a benchmark, if you will, for estimating whether it's cheaper to rent or to own a property. The price to rent ratio is used as an indicator for whether housing markets are fairly valued or in a bubble. Let me give you a little example, and this would be a more local example. Let's say you had a home that rented for $2,500 per month, and let's say that home sold for $300,000. You take the annualized rent, $2,500 per month times 12 months, that's $30,000 in annual rent. Now let's say that the home is, the price or the value of the home is $300,000. So if you take $300,000 and you divide it by $30,000, that number is 10. So in this particular case, for that particular home, the price to rent ratio is 10. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, any price to rent ratio between 1 and 15 generally indicates it is much better to buy than to rent. Now, a price to rent ratio of 16 to 20 or even higher indicates it's typically better to rent than to buy. And if the price to rent ratio is 21 or higher, it says you better rent instead of buy. The price to rent ratio historically is used as an indicator for whether housing markets are fairly valued or in a bubble. As many of you will remember, the dramatic increase in the price to rent ratio leading up to the 2008-2009 housing market crash was really, with hindsight, a red flag for the housing bubble. Rents were staying the same, but the values and the sales prices of homes were climbing significantly. While the price to rent ratio compares the economics of buying versus renting, it says really nothing about the overall affordability of buying or renting in a given market. Cities where both renting and buying are very expensive, such as San Francisco or New York, could have the same price to rent ratio as a small Midwestern town where both homes and rents are relatively cheap. Price to rent ratio, take your monthly rent, multiply it by 12, then take the price of the home and divide it by the annual rent. That'll give you the price to rent ratio. Anything from 1 to 15, hey, you should buy. Anything 16 to 20, you should rent. Anything over 20, you dang sure should rent.